Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. It is that time of the year, the final week of the NFL regular season, which means there are a bunch of playoff scenarios that we have to break down. In this video, I'll be breaking down every playoff scenario for every team that is still alive for playoff contention. So let's get into it. So starting off, we're going to go conference by conference. We're going to start in the AFC. These are the teams that have been eliminated. You have the Broncos sitting at 8-8. They ended up winning last week, but I'm pretty sure they needed Kansas City to lose, but Kansas City won, which eliminated the Broncos. The Bengals sitting at 8-8 had a chance going into last week, fell to Kansas City, which eliminated them. Raiders, same deal. They were 7-8 going into last week. Then they ended up losing to the Colts, which knocked them out of playoff contention. And then you have the Jets, the Titans, the Chargers, and the Patriots, who have all been eliminated for a couple of weeks now. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to go division by division, starting with the AFC North, and we have the Baltimore Ravens. Now, if you're a Ravens fan, you're happy because they have clinched the number one seed and home field advantage throughout the playoffs, so really no need for them to start their starters in this Week 18 matchup versus Pittsburgh. Expect them to rest probably Lamar Jackson, a lot of their starters, because they've clinched all that they can clinch. So good news for the Ravens is they have the one seed. Also clinched from that division is the Cleveland Browns. They've clinched the number 5 seed, sitting at 11-5. Expect them to rest their starters. I'm pretty sure they are going to be resting Joe Flacco. They do play at Cincinnati in Week 18, but again, this is a meaningless game because they can't move from that number 5 seed, or also known as the number 1 wild card spot. Then we have Pittsburgh, who does need some things to go their way to make the playoffs, also from the AFC North. They're sitting at 9-7, Week 18 at Baltimore, which normally would seem like a really tough matchup, but you got to remember Baltimore's already clinched everything. They're probably going to be resting starters. This is a great opportunity for the Steelers to get a win, to boost their playoff resume. So, looking at the playoff scenarios that get them in, they need to win at Baltimore and they need Buffalo to lose, or they can win at Baltimore and have Jacksonville lose and Denver win. So if you're a Steelers fan, those are the teams you're looking out for. The thing about the Steelers is they don't control their own destiny, so they're gonna need some help, as you can see right there. But it's definitely doable for the Steelers. I'd say their strongest case is hoping for Buffalo to lose because they are playing at Miami, which I'll cover later. And yeah, that's the situation for the Steelers. Moving on to the AFC South, this division is still up for grabs. You got 3 teams sitting at 9-7, but the front runner going into Week 18 is Jacksonville. They're sitting at 9-7. Their Week 18 matchup is at Tennessee. They clinched the AFC South division and the number 4 seed if they win this game. So it's very simple for them. Win and you're in. However, if they were to lose this game, there is still a chance that they could clinch a wild card spot. They wouldn't win the division, but they could clinch a playoff spot. And this would be done with a Denver loss and a Pittsburgh loss. That would allow them to sneak into the wild card spot, which would be good for them. But I mean, it's Tennessee, which shouldn't be that difficult of a matchup. So if you're Jacksonville, you're definitely just looking to clinch the division outright and get a win here in Week 18. Now, the other contender for the division, there's 2 more, but one of them is the Houston Texans. They're also sitting at 9-7, and their Week 18 matchup is going to be at Indianapolis. This is probably one of the biggest matchups of the week because the winner of that game clinches a playoff spot. As you can see right there, the winner of Houston and Indianapolis clinches a playoff spot. They can also, however, clinch the division if Jacksonville were to lose. Now, this would be done by beating Indianapolis and having Jacksonville lose. That would allow the Texans to sneak in and clinch the division and likely get the 4 seed. Now, the final contender in the AFC South division is Indianapolis, who is versing Houston. That's a home game. That'll be on Saturday. That might be the primetime game on ESPN. I know it's on Saturday. I'm not really sure what time it's at. But that's going to be a huge game for playoff implications because the winner of this game goes to the playoffs, as I've discussed earlier. So either Houston or Indianapolis will be guaranteed in the playoffs. Now, the loser of this game is likely eliminated. I think there are scenarios where they would get in, but it would take an awful lot to go their way, so it's unlikely. So really, if you're a fan of either of these teams, just hope to get the win and you're in. And then they can also clinch the AFC South, which would end up being the 4 seed, if they win and Jacksonville loses. Moving on to the AFC East, this division, I, I said the Colts and Texans was probably the biggest game, but this is probably the biggest game of the week. This is going to be the Sunday night game, cap off the regular season, featuring Miami and Buffalo. And it's for a division title, and there's severe playoff implications on this game. So let's start with Miami. They're sitting at 11-5. As we mentioned, week 18 is going to be versus Buffalo. They've already clinched a playoff spot, so they can't get knocked out in this game against Buffalo. However, they could lose the division. Now, to clinch the AFC East, all they have to do is beat Buffalo, and this will put them in the number 2 seed because they would finish ahead of the other division leaders in Kansas City and the AFC South winner. So if they win this game, they're going to be the number 2 seed, which is good for them. However, if they lose this game, they fall to the number 6 seed, which would be very detrimental to their playoff chances. They would still be in the playoffs, but they would likely not be hosting any playoff games, which would be a huge blow to them, considering they were sitting in a really good spot to win this division just a couple weeks ago. Now, the team they're playing, Buffalo, they're currently sitting at 10-6. They have to travel to Miami, and like I said, the winner of that game clinches the AFC East and the 2 seed with the win at Miami. The thing about the Bills is they could get the 2 seed, they could also get a playoff spot, and they could potentially get knocked out of the playoffs in this week. Now, to clinch a playoff spot, if they were to lose against Miami, they would need a Jacksonville loss or a Pittsburgh loss. So it really wouldn't take that much. But you look at Jacksonville, they're playing at Tennessee. That's not a tough game. You're looking at Pittsburgh, they're versing a Baltimore team who's resting their starters most likely. So for the Bills, you could potentially start to worry. The good news for them is they have the very last game of the regular season, so they're going to know exactly what they need to do going into this game. I don't think that's going to change their motivation or anything like that, but it would be helpful for them because they're going to be knowing what they need to do in this game against Miami going into this game. And then the final division, this one's pretty boring. The AFC West. Kansas City Chiefs have already locked up this division. They're sitting at 10-6. They do travel to the Chargers, but they are resting Patrick Mahomes in this game because they have clinched their division and they are stuck in that number 3 position. So yeah, that's about it for the Chiefs. They're going to be most likely resting more of their starters just besides Mahomes, and they'll look forward to the playoffs. So now just kind of a roundup for the AFC, a final projection. The division leaders, Baltimore, like I said, they have clinched that 1 seed. They cannot fall from that spot. The 2 seed will either be the Dolphins or the Bills. Whoever wins that game is going to get the 2 seed. The 3 seed is going to be the Chiefs. That is guaranteed. They're locked in that spot. They can't move up or down. And then the 4 seed will just be the winner of the AFC South, which could be the Jaguars, the Texans, or the Colts. Now, looking in the wild card, the 5 spot is clinched by the Cleveland Browns. The 6 seed will be the Dolphins if they lose this game. Sorry, I messed up there. The Bills, I'm not sure the Bills can actually get the 6 seed. The 6 seed will be the Dolphins if they lose to Buffalo, or it could be Houston or Indianapolis. And then the 7 seed would be Jacksonville, Houston, Indianapolis, Pittsburgh, or Buffalo. So a lot of crowding in the 7 seed. Um, but look, as long as your team follows the projections that I laid out earlier, they'll be good. Now, moving on to the NFC, we're going to go through the teams that are already eliminated. Chicago Bears, they've really turned it around in this past couple of weeks. They've started to play a lot better. However, they did need Green Bay to lose to Minnesota, which didn't happen, so they are eliminated from playoff contention. Then we have the New York Giants, the Commanders, the Cardinals, and the Panthers, who have all been eliminated for quite some time. So same thing as the AFC, we're going to go division by division, and we're going to start this time in the NFC West because the winner of this division, the San Francisco 49ers, has clinched the number 1 seed and home field advantage. So expect them to rest a lot of their starters. Their Week 18 matchup is against the Rams, which could be a good matchup, but it might not be as good as people think because San Francisco is likely going to rest some of their starters. But good news for them is they have the 1 seed, so not a lot to worry about in San Francisco. The team they are versing, the LA Rams, is sitting at 9-7. Like I said, their Week 18 matchup is at the 49ers. The good news for them is they've also clinched a playoff spot, and they are locked in to the number 6 seed, I'm pretty sure. They might not be locked into the number 6 seed. I'm pretty sure they are, but I know for sure they've clinched a playoff spot. So we'll see what they do with their starters. I think they're going to start their starters um, because they still have motivation to play. But the good news for them is they've clinched a playoff spot, which honestly a lot of people did not see happening, myself included. After this team started 3-6, I thought it was kind of just going to be another year, another down year for this team, coming off that incredible Super Bowl run where they kind of went all in. However, they've won 6 of their last 7, which is quite incredible. Now they're sitting at 9-7, so really well done by Sean McVay and his staff to get the Rams back in the playoffs. The final team in that division is the Seattle Seahawks. They're sitting at 8-8. They just had a tough loss against Pittsburgh in Week 17. Their Week 18 matchup is against Arizona. They're gonna have to travel on the road for that one. The thing about Seattle, they do not control their own destiny, so they can clinch a playoff spot with a win, and they need Green Bay to lose, which it's not going to be. Obviously, they don't control their own destiny. However, Green Bay is playing a Chicago team that's been playing better of late. But Seattle, it's gonna be a stressful weekend for the Seattle fans. But that's how they would get into the playoffs. Just win and have Green Bay lose. Moving on now to the NFC East, this division is still up for grabs. The Cowboys are the frontrunners in this division. They're at 11-5. Their Week 18 matchup is at Washington. They have clinched a playoff spot, and all they need to do to win this division is just beat Washington, which shouldn't be too hard. Obviously, Washington is sitting at 4-12. I'd be shocked if Dallas loses this matchup. And if they win this game, they'll be the number 2 seed, which is good for them. However, if they were to lose this game and Philadelphia wins their game, Dallas would drop down to the 5 seed because they would lose control of the division and Philadelphia would end up winning the division. That's if Dallas loses and Philadelphia wins. But like I said, it's quite unlikely that they lose to Washington, but that is a possibility. And then the team I just talked about, Philadelphia, they're also at 11-5. However, Dallas owns the tiebreaker over them in the division. Their Week 18 matchup is at New York, which shouldn't seem like a tough matchup, but this Philadelphia team has really been struggling a lot of late. They barely beat the Giants when they played them on Christmas Day. Now they have to travel at New York. This could be a scary matchup for Philadelphia and a team that's really just kind of hobbling into the playoffs. It's not good for Philadelphia. They really got to right this ship before the playoffs. However, the good news for them is they have clinched a playoff spot. And like I said, they do not control their own destiny for the division title. In order to win the NFC East, they need to win and they need Dallas to lose. Otherwise, they're going to be the number 5 seed, which isn't bad, but they likely would not host any playoff games, which would be huge for this team if they were able to win this division and host some playoff games. Then we have the NFC North, which is the Detroit Lions. They have already clinched the division, and they are at worst the number 3 seed. Now, they're likely locked into the number 3 seed because in order to move up, they would need to win, which obviously is doable, but then they would also need Dallas and Philadelphia to lose, which is quite unlikely considering the competition that those two teams have in this last week. However, what a season for the Detroit Lions. It's just been an incredible story for this team. I'm pretty sure all of America has a soft spot for Detroit, myself included. It's going to be exciting to see what this team can do in the playoffs. They're guaranteed a spot, likely looking at that number 3 seed. So good job, Detroit. Also in that division, Green Bay Packers, they're sitting at 8-8. Their final game is versus Chicago. That's going to be a home game. And the good news for Green Bay is they're in a win and in scenario. All they have to do to make the playoffs is just beat Chicago. If they lose to Chicago, they're likely not going to make the playoffs. I think they would need pretty much every other team on the bubble kind of to lose, which is quite unlikely. But basically, the thing for them is win this game against Chicago and you're in. Now the Vikings are still not out of it. Surprisingly, they're sitting at 7-9. Their final game is at Detroit, which is going to be a tough one. But they really took a tough blow last week by getting crushed by Green Bay at home. I think their QB struggles and their inconsistency at the position are starting to catch up to them, like I predicted. And I just don't think this team is a playoff ready team. Had they had Kirk Cousins, we could be sitting here honestly saying that they won this division if they had Kirk Cousins, but unfortunately that's just not how it goes, and the inconsistency that this team faced throughout the season is starting to catch up to them. But they can still make the playoffs. Obviously they need a win. They need a Green Bay loss, a Seattle loss, and a loss from either Tampa Bay or New Orleans. So that's quite a lot for the Vikings. They need to win a tough matchup at Detroit, and then they need uh, three other teams to lose. So honestly, for the Vikings, they're probably not looking at a playoff spot this year, but they definitely have some stuff to look forward to for next year. Now, the NFC South, this is the final division, and this one is still being contested. The winner to be determined this week. The Buccaneers are the front runners. Their Week 18 matchup is at Carolina, and all they have to do to win this division, to clinch the NFC South, is just beat Carolina, which theoretically shouldn't be that hard, but who knows, right? Carolina could come out with passion, trying to spoil the Bucs' season. If they lose this game, they're done. There's like no chance that they make the playoffs at 8 and 9. Uh, so they definitely need to win this game. Now, if they were to win this game, they'd be sitting at the number 4 seed because they would be the worst record division winner, but they would still get to host a playoff game, which would be critical for them. Now, the other team that's contesting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for this division is the Saints. They're also at 8 and 8. Their Week 18 matchup is a home game against Atlanta. Now, if Tampa Bay loses, New Orleans can clinch the NFC South with a win, which would be huge for them because obviously it's going to be hard for Tampa Bay to lose. But if they did, it'd be a great opportunity for New Orleans to take advantage of and make the playoffs. Now, they can still make the playoffs even if Tampa Bay doesn't lose. They wouldn't be able to win the NFC South division, but they could clinch a playoff spot if they win and then Green Bay and Seattle lose. So it's definitely still a possibility for New Orleans to make the playoffs. The team they are versing, the last team with still with a chance, is the Falcons. Like I said, they're versing New Orleans. They're going to be on the road for that one. The thing about the Falcons is they cannot make a wild card spot. Their only hope of making the playoffs is clinching the division, which they're in the same boat as New Orleans. All they would have to do is beat New Orleans and have Tampa Bay lose, which is going to be tough for them. But you never know. Crazier things have happened. I could definitely see this happening with how inconsistent this division has been throughout the season. So we'll see. And then the final projection for the NFC. The 1 seed, guaranteed the San Francisco 49ers. The 2 seed could be the Cowboys, the Eagles, or the Lions. But we're most likely looking at the Cowboys if I had to put money on that one. The 3 seed, likely going to be the Detroit Lions, but it could also be the Cowboys or the Eagles. And then the 4 seed is going to be the NFC South champion, which would be the Buccaneers, the Saints, or the Falcons. The wild card spot, the 5th spot, would be the Eagles or the Cowboys. Whoever doesn't win the division is locked into the number 5 spot. The 6th seed is going to be the Rams. Like I said, I don't think the Rams can move down from that 6th spot, but I'm not 100% sure. We're going to assume that they can't because they are sitting a full game ahead of those other teams. So they are likely looking at the 6th seed. And then the 7th seed would either be Green Bay, Seattle, New Orleans, or Minnesota, depending on what shakes out with the different scenarios. All right, thank you guys for watching. Be sure to stay tuned for my video on Week 18 Week 18 game picks, which will be coming out either later today or tomorrow. Make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below which teams you think are going to make the playoffs, which teams you don't think are going to make the playoffs, and I'll see you guys in the next one.